Hello everyone, and welcome to the lab series in continuation to our Azure administration study series. So this is lab number 4, networking. So it's the virtual networking that we're going to configure on the Azure environment. So for this lab, I will urge you to download all the required files for this lab. So if you have not done any of our labs and this is the first time you're doing the labs, remember that we're using the Microsoft official learning guide for this, the AZ104 learning guide. So you can go to that link below this video, which will direct you to all the labs that you need and also the files that you actually need. So once you've done that, you should download all the required files. You click on this link here to download all the files. Once you download it, then you can go to the module number 4, the virtual networking, and then we can start. So I'm just going to show you what we are going to do for this lab. So I'm just going to bring up a PowerPoint. These are the objectives, right? First of all, we're going to create and configure a virtual network. Then we will create a subnet 0 and then a subnet 1. Then after, we move to task number 2, which we deploy a virtual machine into the virtual network. Then after that, we go to task number 3. We configure private and public IP addresses of Azure VMs. So we will configure a public IP address for the VM that we have in the subnet 0 and then subnet 1. We will demo how without a network security group, you will not be able to access any resources in these subnet. Once you configure a network security group, we'll make another test which will demo that you'll be able to connect to these resources. Then we move to defining a DNS zone. Once we've done that, we'll then move to task 6, which will configure Azure DNS for external name resolution. So that will be for it for the labs. Okay, let's begin our lab. So to start, you need to make sure you go to portal.azure.com. You log in. Once you log in, you need to search for virtual network. So let me just bring this up. So once you search for virtual network, click on add. Right, and now we need to add our virtual network. The first thing we need to do is to create a resource group. It's going to name this AZ104-04-RG1. Okay. Now we need to give the resource a name. So it'll be AZ104-04-VNet1. Right, I'm just going to place this one in East US. So once you have all this, you have to click on Next IP addresses. Okay, so in the IP address, you can see there's an address given already of 10.3.0.0/16. I'm just going to take that one away and define a brand new one. So this will be 10.40.0.0/20. Now let's define a subnet. Give it a subnet a name. So we're just going to give this a name as subnet 0. Then we have to give that an address. So this will be 10.40.0.0/24. Okay, so that's all we need to do here, and then click on add. So we added our first subnet. So all we need to do here is just add the first subnet, click on review. All right, so validation passed successfully. Then click on create. This might take a bit of time, but using the magic video, we will just fast forward it. Okay, it's been created successfully. It didn't take that long. So you go to the resource. and then we click on subnet. Now we have the first subnet, so we're just going to add a second subnet. So we just have to click on add subnet, and now we define our second subnet. So this will be subnet 1. We have an address defined already, which is good enough for us. So we leave the address as it is, and then we just have to save it. Okay, so essentially this is task 1 completed. So now we're just going to move on to task number 2. So the task number 2 is deploying a virtual machine into this virtual network, right? So what we're going to do is, right, we're just going to use a template to do this. That's why it's essential that you download all the files that comes with this lab. So for task 2, we're going to create the virtual machine using an ARM template. Just have to click on this icon right here that will open the shell, the cloud shell. Make sure you select Powershell. So once you're in here, we need to upload the files that we downloaded from the lab for lab number 4. So to download, to actually upload the files, just click on this icon here, select upload. Right, so click on all files, labs. This is lab number 4. Select lab number 4, and these are the ones we need. So you select this one here, upload it successfully, then you click on the upload button again. Then upload the second one. That is done successfully as well, so we can list it here. So these are the files right there. All right, then just close here. So now that we have the file, we just have to run the command to install our template. So I'm just going to copy the command directly from the lab manual. So I'm just going to go here. So this is the command we're going to run. It's a Powershell command, so I'll copy that, go back to our lab, paste that in here. So essentially this is going to literally build our environment to have the VMs all configured for us. So once you paste this here, you just have to press the enter key and it should start the building. This will take a bit of time, so just give it a few minutes and then it should be good to go. But using the magic of video, we're just going to skip and then we will show you what we've done. Here we go. All the resources are now completed successfully. So as you can see here, we have all the resources completed. So that's the end of task number 2. So now we're moving on to task number 3. I'm just going to close this one down. So for task number 3 is we're just going to configure the private and public IP addresses of the Azure VMs. So to do this, let's go to the resource. So I'm just going to type in resource here. So we can go to the resource group. And this is the resource group at the top. We click on that resource group. And these are the resources that has been created for us. So what I'm going to do is, right, I'm just going to select the network we created. So we got this network here, VNet 1. I'm just going to click on that now. And we have 2 connected devices. As you can see here, NIC 0 and then NIC 1. So let's click on NIC 0 first and click on the IP configuration. Okay, so with the IP configuration, what we're going to do is we're just going to now attach an IP address to this IP config. First of all, we need to click on associate, and then we need to associate a public IP address. So click on create new and then give this a name, AZ104 -04 -PIP 0, and I'll select standard. Okay, then click OK. Okay, we want this one to be static, so we just select static, and then we click on save. Okay, so this has been created successfully. So now we're going to do the same for the other NIC, the NIC one as well. So we're just going to go back here, select NIC 1, and then IP configuration, IP config 1, click on associate, define a public IP address. So you define a public IP address of AZ104-04-PIP1, and we're just going to use a standard SKU. Click OK, and then for the private address we set it as static, and we leave it as the same address there, and then we click on save. Okay, so this was done successfully as well. So now let's go back to the resource group, and then we can check our VM to see if the IP address has been assigned to them. So using the breadcrumb, we navigate to the resource group. We got VM 0 and also VM 1. Let's click on VM 0. There you go. So clicking on VM 0, as you can see here, we got a public IP address associated with this and also a private IP address associated. Now let's go back and check the other VM as well. So we can click on resource group, then we can then go back to the resource, then VM number 1. The same thing here. We got a public IP address here of 40.114.72.109, then a private IP address of 10.40.1.4. So this is the end of our task number 3. Okay, so for task number 4, we need to go back to the resource group. So essentially, it's setting up the network security group for this for our VMs essentially. So when we go back to our resource group here, let's click on one of the VMs. So let's click on VM 0. All right, let's try to connect. So there is no security group at the moment. So when we click on connect, we download the RDP file. Right, so I'm just going to open the file now. Right, try to connect, and it's not going to establish any connection because there's no NSG allowing port 3389 for the RDP. So this is going to fail. There you go, it fails. So without the NSG, we cannot access our resource. So now let's set up an NSG. So let's just type in NSG. There you go, network security group. Let's define a new NSG by clicking on the plus icon here. Let's add this one to our resource group of AZ104. Now let's give this resource group a name. I'm just going to give this one AZ104-04-NSG01. All right, I'll leave it in the same region as our resource, and then I'll click on review and create. Okay, validation passed successfully. Just click on create. Okay, so the resource is created successfully. So let's go to the resource, and there you have it. We're going to associate this to our VMs. So to do this, what we need to do is first of all create an inbound security rule to allow RDP into the VM or into the network essentially. So what we can do here is click on add, and then under service we can search for RDP. There you go, RDP. So the source is any, and then the source port, we leave that one as any, and the destination any, and the service, which is the most important thing here, we leave that as RDP, right? And for the priority, the lower the value, the higher the priority. So we'll set this one to, let's say, 300. Okay, and then we have to give it a name. So I'm just going to name this one allow RDP bound. Okay, so that's all we need to do, and click on add. Created successfully. Let's refresh this. There you go. So this is our connection into the network, right? So the next thing is that we need to associate this one to our VM. So to do this, we need to search for network. So the network interface right here, we click on that one and click on associate. Now we need to associate this one to NIC 0 and also NIC 1. So I'll select NIC 1. That's done successfully. Then we click on associate again and click on this one as well. Okay, so that is done successfully. So now let's go to our VM and see if we can now make a connection to these resources. All right, so to do this, let's go back to our resource group. Click on our resource group and look for the VM 0. Click on connect. Now let's download the RDP file again. And now let's make another connection. So this should succeed. There you go. So you get a prompt to log in now. So you can easily log in with a password and the username provided in the lab manual. So we just log in as students. The password, click on yes. And there you have it. Connection successful. So there you have it. That's task number 4. So now let's move on to task number 5. Okay, so for task number 5, we're going to configure an Azure DNS for internal name resolution. So to get started, we need to type in private DNS zone here in a search field. So this is it here. Once that comes up, you click on the plus icon here. And then you select the same resource as AZ104. You have to give this a name. So I'm just going to give this one a name as Contoso.org. And then that's all we need to do. You click on review and create. Now validation passed, so click create. Okay, that will take a bit of time for you to create this resource. Okay, so the resource is done successfully. So now let's go to the resource by clicking on go to resource. and then under the settings, click on virtual network links and click on add. Right, let's give this a name. We're just going to give this a name, an AZ104-04 VNet 1 link. Okay, so now let's select our virtual network. So for the virtual network, we will select the VNet 1 for the AZ104, and then we have to enable auto registration and then click OK. Okay, so here we go. The virtual network link created successfully. So now let's click on overview here. So once you click on overview, we should see our record showing up here momentarily. So let's click on refresh. There you have it. There you go. So we can see the results showing up here. So what we can do is go into one of the results or one of the VMs and check to see if we can resolve this to an IP address, to that IP address. So I'm just going to copy this here. I still have the VM now connected to here, so I'll bring this up and then I'll bring up a PowerShell. Okay, so I'm just going to type in NSLOOKUP space, paste the address in there, and then dot. There you have it. It resolved successfully. Okay, so this is the end of task number 6. We set up the DNS and then we can resolve it on a virtual device, a virtual machine with no issue, right? So let's move on to task number 6. So for task number 6, we're going to configure Azure DNS for external name resolution. So because this one is external, we need to verify that the specific domain we select is quite unique and it's something that is not owned by anyone externally. So to do this, let's go to a new tab and then let's go to GoDaddy.com and let's just type in the name we're just going to use to see if it's something that is being used by anyone. So I'm just going to use test.com. Let's see if this is owned by someone. All right, so clearly this domain is available. We can use that. So now let's go back to Azure, and then we're just going to search for DNS Zone. So that's the first one at the top. Click on add, select the resource group, and let's give this a name, test.com. So once we have the name given, we can then go ahead and create this. All right, so validation passed successfully, so we can go ahead and then create. Right, resource has been created successfully. Let's go to the resource to see what we got. So we got our new DNS zone. Now we're just going to add a new record set, but before we do so, let's find out the public IP address of our VM. So to do this, let's go to our resource and click on our resource group name and VM0. Let's start with VM0. Let's copy the public IP address of VM0, go back to our DNS zone, click the name and let's create a new record set. So let's click on record set. Go. So the record is AZ104-04-VM0. Right, so we're just creating a type of A record, so we leave that one as it is, and for the address we paste in the address we copied. There you have it, and then we click on OK. It's done successfully. Now let's create another record for the VM1. So let's go back to the resource, click on the resource group name, select VM1, copy the IP address, then let's go back to the DNS zone and create a new record set. Okay, so this one will be the new VM AZ104-04-VM1. Okay, so the same thing, the type is A, the record type is A, and now just add the IP address and click on OK. That's it. Alright, so we got 2 DNS records created with no issue. We need to now verify if we can actually resolve this. To do this, we need to use the name the name server, since it's created using Azure name server. So I'm just going to bring up PowerShell, and then I'll try to resolve using this name server here to see if by checking this one against that, is it going to resolve it to this IP address. So I'm just going to bring this up here. Okay, so now let's copy this name here, then ns lookup, we paste the host name there, then we type in the domain name, which is coffeetest.com, and now we copy the name server, one of the name servers here. Any one of these 4 will do. So I'll paste that one here, and let's see if that resolves fine. There you have it. As you can clearly see from here, we can resolve that host name to the public IP address with no issue. We can test with the other one as well. So let's copy the VM1, copy that one, and then just do ns lookup, we paste, we type the domain, which is coffeetest.com, and then we copy one of the name servers. Let's copy the second one, then paste. There you go. So that can resolve it as well. So this is the end of our lab. Everything was done successfully, so I hope you managed to accomplish this lab successfully as well. Thank you for watching this video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.